Good morning, everybody. Before we get started, let me give a quick building and safety briefing. Bathrooms and kitchens are out off to my right. If you haven't seen those already, that's very important. Please make yourself at home. Our home is your home here. Emergency exits are off to my right and directly in front of me. If you have not already signed in, could you please do so? In the event of an emergency, we will rally everybody out in the designated parking lot, and we will use those sign-in sheets to make sure that everybody has made it out of the building safely. Okay, also, you may hear a loud audible warning at any time during this morning's presentation. We have something called the Early Earthquake Warning System. We have a sensor right out here in the parking lot that you can see. Anytime there is an earthquake within California, we have a warning here in the Emergency Operations Center that goes off. It's pretty loud, and it'll tell you whether or not shaking is expected or not, and if so, how long it will take to happen. I mention that because it happens fairly often. We've already had 2 this week, so that may happen. If that does happen, we'll pause the briefing for a minute or 2 until we find out what's going on. Anyway, welcome to the Santa Barbara County Emergency Operations Center. My name is Robert Troy, and I have the privilege of serving as the Deputy Director for the Santa Barbara County Office of Emergency Management. Thank you all for taking the time out of your schedules. We know that it's been a very busy week for everybody, but it's very important that we take the time to do this morning, and we appreciate that you value this initiative as well and have taken the time to be here. It's been a busy week, but it's been a productive week for all of our public safety partners here within the county. We've had a lot of calls for service related to the weather, but by and large, we've been fortunate. This all serves as a great reminder of why we need aware and prepare. So the timing is fortunate in that respect. El Nino has been predicted for months. Everybody said it would arrive in January, and it arrived right on time this week. We do still have a number of significant weather issues facing us both this week and through the remainder of this winter. So we do take this opportunity to ask the residents of Santa Barbara County to use caution with the weather, to avoid ever driving into water and staying out of the water when conditions are not safe. Disasters don't stop at borders. In Santa Barbara County, we plan together, working as partners with all of our cities, districts, UC Santa Barbara, as well as Ventura and San Luis Obispo counties. We are stronger when we work together, and Aware and Prepare is a great example of that partnership. Just as we plan with our neighbors, we ask that the residents of Santa Barbara County plan to be prepared with their neighbors, their coworkers, and their families. Aware and Prepare is going to be a great tool to help them do that. We're eager to introduce our new team members today, and we're also eager to talk about Aware and Prepare. We're eager to unveil our new initiative to effectively communicate and interact during emergencies with the residents and our partners within Santa Barbara County. So we look forward to spending great time with you talking about that. We do ask that you hold your questions for the end of our presentations today. We promise that we'll take the time to make the experts available to answer any questions that you may have. So with that, it is my great pleasure to introduce the most recent chair of the Board of Supervisors, 2nd District Supervisor Janet Wolf, who is a great supporter of public safety within Santa Barbara County. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Troy. It's wonderful to be here, as always. I want to welcome all of you for coming to Santa Barbara County EOC for this very exciting and timely safety event. First, I want to welcome the following elected officials who are with us today. We have Vice Mayor of Carpinteria, Fred Shaw. Fred is in the back. Thank you, Fred. We also have the Mayor of Solvang, Jim Richardson, right here. Thank you for being here, Jim. And of course, my colleague on the Board of Supervisors, 1st District Supervisor Salud Carbajal, who is in the back, who also, I might mention, and I think along with all of my colleagues, understand the importance of and relevance of public safety in our community. I also want to acknowledge the emergency managers and other staff from around the county. It is because of their work that we are presenting this wonderful tool to all of you today. During my time as 2nd District Supervisor, I focused on supporting public safety, disaster planning, and public engagement. I'm quite aware that we won't always have the luxury of seeing satellite images of El Nino so that we will know when we will be inundated with a storm. because we know that we cannot forecast a fire, we cannot forecast an earthquake, nor can we forecast any other event that will require a disaster response. What we can do is be prepared to alert the public of what to do and where to go in case of an emergency. I'm thrilled that our county and partner agencies in the operational area have worked together to bring us a powerful emergency alert system to the residents of Santa Barbara. Through the Aware and Prepare alert system, we will be able to target our emergency response to residents based on where they are and any specific needs that they may have. Communicating in a disaster or emergency is one of the most important things that we do as local government. This system we are launching today allows the county and cities to get timely and accurate information to our residents via cell phone, landline, or computer, and alert them to events occurring countywide or one that impacts them in a specific area. We are excited to join numerous counties and cities throughout California in utilizing this cutting-edge technology. Again, thank you very much for coming today, and I look forward to working with all of you to support public safety, disaster planning, and public engagement in Santa Barbara County. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor Wolf. I'd like to next introduce Chief Kurt Ladapow of the Lompoc Fire Department, representing the Homeland Security Approval Authority, which has made this initiative possible.
Get this up just a little higher. Well, I don't need to tell you my name because you already know it. I do have the honor of serving on the Approval Authority as a member of the Santa Barbara County Homeland Security Approval Authority. Some of you may ask yourselves, what is that Approval Authority? The Homeland Security Approval Authority represents fire, law enforcement agencies in the county, as well as emergency management and our public health department. There are 5 voting members. I'm one of them. Actually, 3 of the members are here with us today. There's myself, Chief Pat Walsh, County Sheriff Bill Brown, County Fire Chief Eric Peterson is here with us, and our County Public Health Director, Dr. Wada, who's in the back of the room. The authority works diligently throughout the year and over the multiple years that we've been securing Homeland Security grants so that we utilize those federal funds effectively and efficiently throughout our county to help increase the level of preparedness, but also the level of protection from harm for all of our county residents. We find it interesting that over the years, our communication world has changed dramatically. There was a time when every single one of you had a landline telephone. Some of you in the room may remember you had to wait for certain times of the night to make those calls because the rates were cheaper, or you had to wait for others on your party line to get off so you could use your phone. Things have changed dramatically. Not that I remember any of those days. 54% of the households in the United States and within our county do not have landlines. They're cell phone only. We identified that we needed a new tool to communicate with those households, with our citizens, and now we have one. I must tell you, when we were first introduced to the concept of this program at a joint meeting between the police chiefs and the fire chiefs, immediately the wheels started to turn about the possibilities and the outreach that we would now be able to undertake with this tool. On behalf of the Approval Authority, we're pleased to help make this initiative a reality by voting the necessary funds to launch the program. I do find it interesting as I look back on the last few years of initiatives. Most of our initiatives involve programs and tools that the public rarely sees. It's behind-the-scenes work in the area of hazardous materials response, biochem response, etc. But this tool will touch our citizens' lives, has the potential to touch our citizens' lives each and every day in an emergency situation as well as a non-emergency situation. We will only be able to make this county-wide partnership a reality, however, so that our citizens can benefit from unless our citizens enroll, unless each and every one of you here enroll and take advantage of the investment that we've made to communicate and prepare and let you know when we have emergencies. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chief Lanapel. I'd also like to introduce Santa Barbara County Fire Chief Eric Peterson and Santa Barbara County Under Sheriff Bernard Malakian, also part of the Approval Authority.
Well, good morning, everybody. Thank you, Ryan, and thank you, Bob, for the opportunity to speak this morning. I had always thought, that, or I never thought before I learned about Everbridge that Reverse 911 was an actual private sector product, a for-profit product that could be eclipsed by yet another private sector product. I'd always thought of Reverse 911 as just being part of a dispatch center. And you know, just like the mountains are up there, if you need something to evacuate people, you use Reverse 911, and that's what we came up with. And I did not know that there could be something other than that. And honestly, when Ryan first started talking to us group of fire chiefs, I was a bit skeptical about this thing. But to Ryan's credit, he stuck to it, and he was a little bit pushy, which is, in retrospect, a good thing. And now, after we received some really good information about Everbridge, we had some representatives from Everbridge come and talk to us. It became very, very clear that this is going to be a huge step forward for this county in keeping its citizens and its cities and its various environs informed of noteworthy emergency events that affect their families and affect the safety and the sanctity of their homes. So this is a huge step forward for this county, and I appreciate the fact that you're all here to help us kick it off. And then now I'd like to introduce Under Sheriff Malakian.
Thank you, and it won't take a long time. It's my privilege to represent Sheriff Bill Brown, who was on the Approval Authority. This is an incredibly powerful tool, an incredibly powerful step forward in terms of the underlying message that has been going out for years to people, which is in the event of an unforeseen disaster, people and neighborhoods need to be prepared to cope for some period of time and on their own. And this tool, by providing a mechanism for getting information out to neighborhoods and areas around the county, is going to dramatically improve public safety. So Ryan and Robert and everyone that was involved in this project, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. At this point, I'd like to introduce OEM Director Ryan Rockebrand and also ask the rest of the OEM team to come on up to the front here, please.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Rockebrand. I'm the Director for the Office of Emergency Management here in Santa Barbara County. And thank you all for being here. This is a tremendous opportunity for us moving forward. I'd like to take just a moment to thank Supervisor Wolf, Supervisor Carbajal, Terry Nisich, Assistant CEO, Renee Ball, unbelievable support in the back on behalf of CEO Mona Miyasato. We are here today for the community. And we've been through a lot. If I could take just a moment to reflect on OEM in 2015. We've been through some significant challenges, perhaps the most complex disaster we've faced here in Santa Barbara County since the '69 oil spill. And it's a credit to the folks behind me and the new members here that we can accomplish our mission today, which is life safety, property preservation, and protecting the environment. This is what this team does. So please allow me the opportunity to just take a moment to briefly introduce some of the wonderful folks here that I have the pleasure of working with every day. You met my Deputy Director, Bob Troy. Have a great opportunity to work with him years ago and now here in Santa Barbara County. To his right, Elsa Arndt. The wealth of knowledge that she has within our oil and gas program is unprecedented and a resounding success for OEM in terms of how we dealt with Refugio. Thank you, Elsa. To Elsa's right, a new member of the team, just joining us from St. Louis, Missouri, is Dan Flynn. Dan is a master exercise practitioner, a wealth of knowledge with regards to field deployments, logistics, managing EOCs. He's worked a number of national disasters, Katrina and beyond, most recently the avian influenza. Brings a wealth of knowledge to the table, and we're happy to have him as part of this team. Justin Freiler joined the team a few months ago and handles most of the grants and finance. So as the members of the Homeland Approval Authority mentioned earlier, without this grant money, this program would not be happening today. And so we're putting this to work for the community, and it's the works of Justin in terms of managing those grants, administering those fiscal years and the funding to make sure that happens, and the audits that come along with that. This whole team would not be here without his expertise. Thank you, Justin. And two new members to the team I'd like to introduce on the far right here. Misha Jackson, former consultant at the federal level with FEMA, has been with the state of Hawaii for the last 3 years. We're very fortunate to have her planning expertise. She's a plans chief. She runs this section. She runs this room when we have a disaster and we have to activate. And last but not least, to my right, San Luis Fire Chief and Cal Fire Chief Robert Lewin has recently joined the team, recently retired after 37 years with the fire service. We are opening, as many of you well know, a North County office in Santa Maria. We have a number of initiatives that we'll be launching in 2016 in the North County. Most notably, our relationship and partnership with PG&E, and there's representatives here from PG&E today, Mike Jin. We have a significant 10-year exercise that happens. 2016 is that year with Diablo Canyon. It's an ingestion pathway exercise. There's a simulated radiological fallout, and there's a true test for all of us, and I mean all of us at the state, local, and federal level that will come together to participate in this exercise. And Chief Lewin will be the cornerstone of making that happen on behalf of Santa Barbara County. To my left, I'll start from the inside. So this is our cadre of extra help. These folks come to us and fill the gap, if you will. And none of us would be able to operate, nor would this facility, without this expertise right here. So Brian Ewell, who is a member of the California State Parks, works for us now at OEM on a part-time basis. He's a big reason for what you see back here on this screen with Aware and Prepare. Thank you, Brian, for your commitment. Thank you. To his left, former Fire Chief Michael W. Dyer is here along with former Undersheriff Don Patterson. They've been with us for almost a year now, I think, and they're working on the Threat Hazard Identification Risk Assessment, a wonderful acronym in our world we call THIRA. For years, we've planned for disasters on a natural disaster scale, and we've never taken a very significant, realistic look in terms of threats, be it technological or man-made. This THIRA accomplishes that. It identifies what our gaps and our vulnerabilities are, and more importantly, our capabilities, and then we put that into the hands of the approval authority so that we can ensure that we are properly spending money and allocating funds towards initiatives that will mitigate those gaps and solve those problems that we've identified. Thank you, Chief Dyer and Dr. Patterson, for your work there. In between, Shannon McCrone, what can I say about Shannon aside from, first of all, happy birthday. Instrumental in terms of how this place functions. Also a pivotal role with the Aware and Prepare initiative. Shannon has spent the last 2 days as our liaison officer deployed in the Ventura EOC. We're supporting them as they deal with the Solomar slides and the one-on-one impact. The information that OEM is pumping out, be it tweets or all the other information, nixles, the community alerts that we're putting out, comes directly from our liaison officers who are out there either at the command posts or in other EOCs or working behind the scenes to vet and validate that information before we push that to the general public. So thank you, Shannon. Dane Larson is our rising star, is an OEM intern, soon to be emergency services planner. He's our jack of all trades, and every one of us here relies on him to accomplish all those tasks we do on a day in and day out basis. Thanks, Dane. I mentioned Dr. Patterson. His expertise and what he brings to the table after 30-plus years in law enforcement is absolutely tremendous in terms of the message that now Under Sheriff Malekian mentioned to give us and identify those threats so we can get that credible message out to the community. To his left, Tyler Hedrick. You see a lot of maps here. GIS, Geographic Information Systems. We talk a lot today about big data. How we analyze that data is probably the most difficult challenge in terms of how you synthesize all that information. And GIS is one of the cornerstones you'll see when Patrick does his demo about how we process that data and how we get to the right information to the right people at the right time. And Tyler makes that happen for us. And last but not least, to his left, Anthony Giovinacci. He does, I mean, you name it. Around this facility, I'll give you an example. Just yesterday, we have this thing in emergency management, we talk about situational awareness. We got to know what's going on at all times. And we're all focused on Ventura, we're focused on the 101, we're focused on the slide. And Anthony comes to me and he says, hey, we got a small flooding problem in the back. It's not getting into the drainage basin. I need something to dig it out. That gentleman right there makes that happen. So without his logistical support and supporting all of us here in an EOC and specifically in the field, we wouldn't operate and be as effective as we are. So thank you for that. So that's OEM 2016. Thank you for listening for a moment there so I can introduce these folks. We have a number of initiatives that we're focused on 2016. I mentioned North County. I mentioned the THIRA. That deliverable is in April. I mentioned hazard mitigation. We have a 5-year update. That's coming in December of this year. We have a significant amount of outreach that we're going to be doing throughout the community. And the Aware and Prepare platform, which we'll talk about in a second, is the cornerstone of making that happen. It's an absolute honor and a privilege every day to stand side by side with these folks and work with them. Thank you all very much. Thank you. So as we transition into the Aware and Prepare initiative and get into some of the details, I'd like to take an opportunity to introduce Jim Caesar, who's the emergency manager for the University of California at Santa Barbara. And Jim serves on the Aware and Prepare Executive Committee. And he's going to talk a little about the history, how we got here, how we've transitioned, and then we'll get into some of the demos moving forward. Thank you all very much.
I thought it was my job to give you all a test on the names. So good morning. It is my privilege to stand up here representing the Aware and Prepare Initiative. The Aware and Prepare Initiative has been going strong since 2007 under the vision of the Orfila Foundation, along with the funding of other foundations and other supporters. The cornerstone or foundation of the objectives and goals of the initiative comes from a report by James Lee Witt and Associates. So we have been working, we're very excited with this new platform, not only for the information that it can get to the community, but also the opportunities that are part of this initiative. Some of you have taken the CERT program, or Community Emergency Response Team Training, the VOIA, the Voluntary Organizations Active in Disasters, which is a nonprofit arm, along with the EPIC, which is our Public Information Coordinators group in town, as well as the grassroots LISOS training, which is our Latino Outreach Coordination. So we're very proud of these initiatives. The platform here behind me will give the citizens of Santa Barbara County even more opportunity to sign up and be part of these. A lot of the speakers that you listened to have been very much part of the program. I can actually recall Supervisor Wolf out there on one of our first exercises out in the rain supporting the volunteers that took the training. And then we're very proud of what this initiative is doing nationwide as we work with partnerships. I think Robert Troy said it best in some of the partnerships in the rooms and working with the different jurisdictions that we have around this room, along with the American Red Cross and our partnership there. So this platform not only will deliver information out to the public, but also give a chance for people to sign up for the different training opportunities. And a lot of this reaches beyond emergency preparedness. In some of these programs, people really have touched upon their lives beyond emergency preparedness and going forward. So we're very excited about these opportunities and thankful to be partnering with the brand in this issue. So with that, Ryan?
Okay, so let's get into it. So let's talk about Aware and Prepare. The website is awareandprepare.org. What did I say? Awareandprepare.org, okay? That's what we tell the community that we need them to go to. We've been building this in preparation specifically for El Nino, but this is a jumping off point moving forward for all times of disaster and otherwise. We consider this a blue skies and a gray skies tool. We will use this during steady state. We will use this during times of crisis. But it's very important right now, as we've experienced this week, and as we've seen in Ventura, who has significant road closures today and still has potential for slide on the 101. We need our citizens, our communities, to register on the system. We have approximately 230,000 records for landlines in the system today. We have approximately 430,000 residents. And as the chief mentioned earlier, more than half of our homes today, especially those with children, do not have landlines. So we do not have your cell phones. We need to be able to contact you and alert you. We prefer to have your email. We prefer to have your cell phones, your multiple locations of work so we know if you've been impacted. And so this tool gives you that. So behind me you see the landing page for Aware and Prepare. The most important thing here is that this is a social platform. Okay? We consider this the whole of community. This is the Facebook for Santa Barbara. We encourage people to register and collaborate. But the first thing we need everybody to do is to register for alerts. So you see behind me on the top left is the big red button, call to action, register for alerts. That's going to pop up a new window, and we're going to go through the steps of this, and you follow a procedure in terms of identifying your locations and the ways in which you want to be contacted and the needs that you may have. And this tool we will in turn use when we have an impacted area so we can identify those folks and have the proper outreach and make sure we get the proper resources to support you. So first is please register for alerts. The second call to action below that is the blue button, which is our Join Our Community. And that gives you an opportunity to engage the platform, to participate, to join different groups, to participate in discussions, and interact with one another as well as government. We want to provide vetted real-time information to you. On the right-hand side, you see live tweets happening. Those come from all of our local jurisdictions, our foundations, our partners. So consider it a one-stop shop for you to engage the community, to ensure that you're properly alerted, and to give you a situational awareness in terms of what's happening in the environment. Again, blue skies or gray skies. Lastly, on the top right, you see a button for major incidents. So if there's a significant event throughout Santa Barbara County, we will have a one-stop shop where we will provide information in real time, either through our Joint Information Center, through our public information officers that can provide that information about closures, be it schools, roads, whatever it may be. That information will be there so everyone has one place that they can go to get that information. Vetted information from our agencies. But again, this is about you. This is about the community having an opportunity to participate, to ensure that they've got a measure in place so they can protect themselves and their families. And with that, I'd like to introduce Patrick Stuver, a senior account executive with Everbridge, a co-owner, a neighbor in Ventura County, and a friend who has built this platform for not only all of us, himself, his family, and a global tool that's used in both the public and private sector around the world. So we're going to take a moment here to transition. I think we've got to do a mic change, and what we're going to do is we're going to jump in and actually demo how to register, and then we're going to demo on the back end, if you will, how we would actually do a notification. So we'll come up with a scenario, evacuation, let's say, wildfire, whatever the scenario may be, and we'll demonstrate for you actually how we would notify that local community. So with that, please allow me the opportunity to introduce Patrick Stuver with Everbridge.
Check. Everybody hear me clearly? Good? Good afternoon. I appreciate the opportunity to come and present to all of you. It's been a multi-year process, and I know that Ryan and the team have really made the case on many, many occasions for the system, and I appreciate the funding committee's review and selection of the system. I've been with Everbridge for, well, when it was ink and a pen, and we were writing it up on the whiteboard in Glendale, California. I was one of the 4 people who were there doing that work. So I have a very, very close relationship with the system. I have a very, very close relationship with the product, how it gets used, and our customer base. I'm a big fan of regional coordination, which we have here with multiple counties using the system. So the process we're going to walk you through today, as Ryan mentioned, is one, how to register. It's really one of the most important key elements of involving the residents with the county and the various county agencies that need to communicate with them. There was a time when these systems were first introduced that it was only landlines. As the chief mentioned, Reverse 911 used to be a product. It's really now just a description of what we're doing. But every year, the effectiveness of just using your landlines decreases. So the importance of registering not only yourself, but every member of your household in the system will make sure that if something were to happen, the county has the best opportunity to communicate with you and your family. In my household, I have myself, my wife, and my son who's got a phone registered in the system. So it's important for me that if not only am I informed, but that each of them are also informed. And you have the ability to do that and register multiple folks per address. So we're going to walk through that process, and as was mentioned earlier, we'll entertain any questions at the end of the process. Once I register in the system, we will be going into the live Everbridge system itself, which is the system for Santa Barbara County, and walk through some basics of how the system will be used, and at the end, entertain questions once again. So thank you for the opportunity, and I'm going to be demonstrating from here, but you'll be able to see what I'm doing up on the screen. I'm going to be taking the position of a resident coming to the awareandprepare.org website for the first time and preparing to register a single resident into this address. So I'm going to go to register for alerts, and it brings up a very straightforward sign-up page. Anybody who's done any work on the web before, creating an account anywhere at any commercial website or otherwise should be able to walk through the process. There are some help and answers for people who have a challenge or are unclear on how this all takes place. I'm going to simply go through the process now and create a username. I need to put on my glasses, but so once I've created the initial account, which is first name, last name, and a registration email, which will allow the county to stay in touch with me, the first step, and as you'll see, it's a pretty straightforward wizard, highlights what my next call to action will be, which will be to enter any number of contact paths. I can enter one or more. A point that I would like to make to anybody who's considering doing this, the more contact paths, the better. What we really look for is minimum 5. Many people feel that because they have a cell phone, or they're used to getting text messages, or they have a home phone, that that's enough. And I can tell you from 14 years in this business and working through hundreds, if not thousands, of very significant events, whatever your plan is to receive communication at the time of disaster, it's not going to be, the disaster is not going to follow your plan. And we could walk through hundreds of real-world scenarios, but typically it's the second, third, or fourth planned-on contact path that works. So in my household, my wife has 10 registered contact paths. I have 8, and my 17-year-old son has 2. So that's a very significant amount of available contact paths for a single address in Thousand Oaks. So I suggest that you register as many as you can possibly come up with. Simply enough, here's a text messaging address for an example. And now, if the Santa Barbara Department of Emergency Management wanted to send me a communication, they've got the ability to text me. Mobile phone, for me, is the exact same of just 818-388-5448 for any of you who have questions. You're welcome to call anytime. Home phone, maybe I don't want to enter my home phone. Maybe I don't have a home phone. My email's been entered, so at this point I've already come up with 3 contact paths. I can also set my preferences. I can say, you know, for me, I would always prefer that you call my mobile phone first, then send me a text, and then send me an email. In reality, for Patrick Stuver, when you're trying to contact me, it's always best that you send me an email first, so I have the ability to reorder these paths So now when the Department of Emergency Management is sending me a message, it'll always send me an email first and give me the ability to confirm that I received that message and stop the whole broadcast for me. So if it's contacting my house and I get an email first, in the email there'll be embedded a link, and I can simply click that link and let the Department of Emergency Management know that I've read the message, and now I don't need to get phone calls on my home phone or cell phone or work phone. It will stop the process, but continue looking for my wife and my son until they confirm receipt, which will give us a huge amount of downstream information and follow-on ability that typically doesn't exist with just the older blasting systems. So I've created the first part of the process, a profile. I've put in 3 additional contact paths, and I'm going to move on to the next part of the registration process. So now I can add locations. Typically, we all think of our home as a great location that we would register where we would be located at. Reality is I'm rarely at home, certainly not during the day. I'm at the office a lot, right? And so with the system, you have the ability to register up to 5 locations per person. So as an example, I've registered, as Ryan mentioned, Ventura County is a customer, and I live in Ventura County, so I've registered my home. I've also registered my office. I've registered where my son goes to school. I've also registered my mom's house. My mom wouldn't pick up the phone for anybody but one of my brother or myself. She looks at the caller ID, and if it's not one of us, she would never pick up the phone. So by registering her address as one that I have interest in, if they were to circle her address and send a broadcast out, I would get that call, and I could call my mom and tell her what needs to happen. So there's backup communications at that address. So I'm not limited to just my home phone. So in this case, I'm going to call this the Santa Barbara EOC as my first location. I'm going to use the address that obviously we're at here. It's going to be the most appropriate at this point. Oops. See, that's me not paying attention to my own system here. It's going to give me the ability to verify the address. It gives me different options of what it thinks that I might be looking for. And in this case, this is the address that I entered. It puts the pin or where it thinks that I'm looking for to place my location. And if I register this is my location, it's going to go ahead and geocode that, leave it as one of my locations, allow me to enter another location. As I said, you can have up to 5. But allow me to go back in the future and edit it or delete this location. If there's some reason in the future that in my account I would not want to have this location again, I can delete it, add another, or just leave it blank. In this case, I'm only going to use one location for the purposes of this demonstration. But I encourage you, when you register, to take a look at the areas or buildings that you might frequent during the day, or the areas or buildings that you might have concern with in the county, so you can make sure that you have some some level of notification from those. We move into alerts. The county has customized and given each community very specific alert types in their communities. So it gives you the ability, if I were to skip, and I can skip past my alert subscription page if I wanted to, and I will be registered for all emergency alerts, but this gives me the opportunity to look into any of the various communities that are participating and perhaps sign up for things that are urgent or less than emergency but of interest to me. So by opening up any community's subsection, we've got under City of Santa Barbara, City News. Under City News, we've got public meetings. I may have an interest in any general city news for the City of Santa Barbara. This now gives the City of Santa Barbara the ability to select me and people like me who have registered for City News and use the system, as Ryan said, in a blue sky fashion. And why is that important? It gives everybody a chance to train on the system. It gives the Department of Emergency Management or the City of Santa Barbara personnel who are trained to use the system the ability to use the system in a real-world sense when there's not an emergency, so they can become comfortable with using the system. It gives the resident the ability to receive notifications from the system in a non-emergency situation, become used to the ebb and flow of how the system's going to work and respond to the system, and it gives the ability to detect any challenges with communication to residents or their understanding of what we're doing ahead of time. Because when the disaster hits, as we all know, that's when everybody gets confused, right? And residents in particular if they become used to using the system in this fashion, will become much more comfortable with using it during an emergency. Many people ask me, they say, well, you know, when these systems first started, they were strictly emergencies only. It was only in life-threatening situations, and you might have a county use their system once a year. Today, people are very interested in information and news, and they want to know what's going on, and they want a relationship with their county or their city officials, or county officials in this case. We have counties that are very well established that use the system 20, 30 times a month. Now, they would never do a countywide notification 30 times a month. As a matter of fact, most of those go to very specific groups of people who have asked for very specific information. But that's making very good use of the system, and it keeps everybody involved in a communications process. So I hope that folks will take the time to look at the various opportunities for notification types and select things that might be of specific interest or use to them on a day-to-day basis. Now, of course, by signing up, in general, they're going to be signed up for emergency notifications. But once again, this also gives the participating cities the ability to increase the types of notifications they may offer in the future, which will increase interest by the residents, which will increase the effectiveness of the system during an emergency. So I've made a selection under county area, under rural areas for Hollister Ranch. So if there's any information for Hollister Ranch, I will now be notified. I'm going to move on to the next section. So under my information, this gives me, or obviously any user, the ability to further customize their profile in the system. And as time goes on, and as the system becomes more readily used, and the lessons learned are applied from disaster to disaster or day-to-day communications, this will give the Department of Emergency Management, the Sheriff's Office, the Fire Department, the CERT teams, the ability to sort and find very specific people with specific needs as resources are available. Not always do we have 4 or 5 extra volunteers with horse trailers tied to the back of their truck ready to help evacuate horses or other large animals. Sometimes we do. And if we do have a parking lot and we've got volunteers available, it'd be very nice to look into a canyon and see who has horses that they may need evacuated. The ability to sort that data, find those folks, and communicate with them and say, hey, are you able to evacuate on your own, or do you need help, is all done through this process. So you can go down and identify various access and functional needs. I may be power dependent or on life support at my location. I may have business information. I may be a child care facility, which has very, very, obviously higher level of significance during a disaster than a rest stop. The volunteer skills, I may be CERT qualified and registered. I might be a heavy construction equipment operator, which will become a very, very important category during regional disasters, major regional earthquakes or otherwise. So this gives me, once again, the ability to identify sub-data about me, or I can simply skip this process. I'm going to save it at this point. I'm going to review my account. I can go back and edit any of this information. And in this case, I'll click Finish, and I've successfully registered myself in the Santa Barbara emergency notification system. So I will go back to this. I'm going to quickly go into the system now and show you how this information will play itself out in the real world, and then we'll answer any questions that you have, and I'll stay as long as need be to make sure that everybody gets their information needs met. So moving into the notification system, system's widely used. Everbridge provides this service, and it is the #1 provider nationally as well as internationally in every measure of every metric in this industry used today. From number of customers to number of broadcasts to revenue to employee count to growth, Everbridge is the #1 provider of this service in a significantly larger metric than, there isn't even a close second. And I tell you that because it's important. This technology in 2003, 2004 was almost experimental. People were trying to figure out what to do with these systems. Today, people really expect and want and look for information. And so this provides you the ability to do that, and it provides the residents the ability to set their preferences so that they're receiving that information in the best way possible for their particular situation. So let's walk through the process. If I were manning this station during a disaster, and we had a need to, say, run an evacuation for everybody within a mile of this facility for whatever reason, what would I do? What would be the process to do that, right? So I'm going to walk through and briefly, we're not going to launch the notification, but I'll show you what I would do. including making a selection of residents and that type of thing. So very straightforward. We have what we call the Universe tab, and that opens up a whole world of information. Now we're going to go into visual information. For the purposes of what we're doing right now, I'm going to walk through the selection and creation of a notification briefly, and then I'll show you some of the additional data that the Santa Barbara Emergency Operations Center has been able to enter into the system to customize it so that it's appropriate for the mission here, because obviously the mission here is different than in Washington, D.C. And the needs of evacuation here and the way that you sort people here are different than in Chicago or New Orleans or Boston. And so Santa Barbara, and I was telling Ryan earlier, has done a really, really great job in prepping the system up. I have customers who are a year or 2 years into the system and have not got as significant and relevant of selecting criteria and data into the system. So really hats off to the team for really taking it seriously and getting right to it, even at launch. So what you see, the red patches you see, each one of these dots represents an address that has some type of data. In this particular case, the red dots that you see are what we call the E911 data, or the existing landlines as best as we can capture in the county. There are some that are not there because people are using unregistered VoIP lines and things of that sort. And as I always promote, and as I've told Ryan and team, it's always best for every resident to assume that they're not in the system. It's great the system's here, but you should assume you're not in the system yet, even if you have a landline, just because getting your information expanded is the best course of business at any level. So we're going to make a selection of data at this point. So I'm going to go to a simple search function. In this case, we're going to search for this address. When I click the search function, it asks me, what do I want to do? Do I want to set a marker? Do I want to set a radius? So I'm going to set a radius. Let's do a 1 mile radius around this facility. So it immediately goes from a very high-level view right down to the facility itself. You'll see now we're seeing the dots begin to spread out a little bit. We're starting to see individual dots associated with individual properties. And just that quick and that simply, we've been able to select 4,584 households and businesses that would now receive this notification, in this case an evacuation notice. We would go from here, and I will back up in just a second and show a few more data points, but we would go from here into creating a new notification. I'll point out that Ryan had mentioned situational awareness and some other elements of emergency management that are really key buzzwords and operational points in today's environment. There are times that folks will use this system to quickly assess how many residents or businesses are within range of a particular issue. You can throw a polygon up onto the map and it'll tell you immediately, hey, you've got 3, or hey, you've got 30,000 people who may be affected by the situation, and that may change the response immediately. You can throw multiple polygons and that type of thing up on the map. So you can see, as we go into the process of creating a message, it's a very straightforward and simple process. We work diligently to constantly hone this down, because it's important that when an operator besides myself is sitting at this desk, they're not faced with multiple windows and confusing processes, that they can create a message, and I'll just quickly show you. From this point to the point that I can launch a message is all one page, and I can send from here. I could train anybody in this room. I'll say almost anybody in this room, because I'm a hard person to train. I could train almost anybody in this room to do this process fairly quickly, very efficiently, and with very few mistakes along the way, with very little problem. So I've made my selection on a map, and I'm not going to create a notification to send. I'm just going to show you some of the elements. I would give the notification some type of relevant title. So in this case, it would be test. Here I would put the typical information of whatever I needed folks to know. This is, pardon me. By typing in this box, our system will convert to any device type that we will deliver to. That would be phones. It will do a text-to-speech conversion. It would be SMS, which are text messages. It would be email, fax, TTY, TDD, pagers, signboards, social media. One data entry point, and everything, with very few exceptions, will be automatically converted and for the appropriate device type. From here, I am ready to actually send the message. If I wanted to send this information to these nearly 4,600 contacts, I would simply go from here and click send, and away it would go. There's some details here I will not get into. These are default settings that I could edit. I don't think it's relevant to this conversation. But I could also create a much more detailed message. The system comes with multiple message tools built in. And as an example, if we were going to do an evacuation, as I discussed, an evacuation might be, here's some information. It is our suggestion you leave as rapidly as possible, as safely as possible. And that might be a message sent from me to you. There are many customers who use polling information, especially when you get into canyon areas where there's mudslides, fires, and otherwise. And we've got sheriff's deputies who need to go out and do door knocking. And we've got limited resources. And perhaps we want to send a message, instead of saying, hey, we would suggest you leave, it would be in our best interest to send a message that would say, hey, press 1 if you've already gone, or you can safely evacuate on your own. Press 2 if you're currently evacuating, will be gone within 30 minutes, or press 3 if you're trapped and need some type of urgent assistance. So now, instead of having sheriff's deputies having to go into an area of danger and door knock properties that may very well be empty, we have the ability to quickly sort data, grab situational awareness, and say to the sheriff or the managing deputy of this particular evacuation, we selected 300 homes. 260 have already responded and said they left hours ago. They're not even there. Here's our area of concern. We have 40 homes that we have concern with that we haven't gotten any responses from, and these are the ones we ought to be door knocking. So now we can take what limited resources we have and target those. This now moves into, instead of just notification to a person or information pushed out, we're now receiving information back. And as you can probably tell very quickly, we have the ability to start to sort this information and do downstream communications in various very particular ways to very particular user groups. And this will play itself out as the situation or the system matures into the operations of the county. These are obviously steps that have to be trained both for operational personnel as well as residents who will learn these processes along the way. We also have the ability to create instant conference bridges. If I needed to speak to every senior representative in the county, every mayor, city manager, city council, county council, and police chief, fire chief, it gives the Department of Emergency Management the ability to create an on-the-fly emergency conference call. And in this case, instead of your phone ringing saying, here's some information, please confirm you got it, it would say, here's some information, I need to speak to you, press 1. They can press 1 on their phone and be immediately patched through to me. So I can do that with up to 96 people. The county has the ability to launch into 4 simultaneous conference bridges. So Department of Emergency Management could be conducting a conference bridge while the sheriff and that team's conducting a conference bridge, while again there may be another senior manager who's on conducting another conference bridge. But it gives me the ability, instead of sending you an email and saying, hey, dial this telephone number and enter this PIN code, you may very well be tactically responding, helping sandbag out front of City Hall. And you're not checking your emails. But when your phone rings and you pull it out and you're able to receive the call, push a button, and be on a conference call where they're comparing data, sharing information, asking or sharing resources, it provides an immediate ability to create the emergency meetings on the fly. So these are tools that are built into the system and available to the Department of Emergency Management today. As I go down, there are some other publishing options. We won't go into detail on these. I will point out one very important one that many of you may be familiar with. Built into the system is the ability to launch what we call a CMAS or a WIA message. For those of you who have a smartphone, have any of you ever been sitting eating dinner or otherwise, and all of a sudden your phone just a tone you've never heard, burp, 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 and you look down and there's an Amber Alert or a significant threat to your life? That's using a federal system. It's called the iPause system and the WIA sub-function, which will broadcast from cell towers to any available smartphone that's turned on and within range, whether you're registered in the system or not. Now, there's limited use. It's for presidential announcements, significant threat to life, Amber Alerts, and some weather events. That system is also built in and part of this process, so the Department of Emergency Management now has the ability to push that out to people who are just visiting the beach, traveling through, visiting a relative, may have no association to the Santa Barbara County whatsoever, but they happen to be here at that moment. So it really does provide full coverage from people who are in their homes to people who have registered, maybe at work, to people who are just visiting the county. The entire toolkit is now available in one interface. I'm going to back out of this process. Obviously, I've selected 4,584 people. I want to take that polygon out. I'm going to show you a couple minor other elements, and then we will turn it over to Ryan, answer any questions along the way. And like I said, I'll stay here as long as I need to. I will like to just point out a couple really neat elements of the system that I think that the GIS department here and the Department of Emergency Management have really taken the time to get right. First of all, I'm going to pull down, and I'm going to turn off a couple of the data layers so that we get a little bit clearer view on the map. So I'll turn off things like the 911 layer and the white page and yellow page data. I will point out that the one layer I left on is the web registration. This program just kicked off, and if you see the green dots that are on the map here, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more and they'll repopulate. Every one of these green dots is somebody who's already come to the website and gone through a registration like I just went through. And we're just starting the program. So with a proper press behind it, your support, and there's a lot of programs that they'll be rolling out from the Department of Emergency Management, but we need a lot of local support. We need local leadership support. We need support of police chiefs and fire chiefs and others, and we'll certainly provide the resources to do that. But it's really impressive to me that it's just rolling out. We've already got so many people. This is the city of Santa Barbara, and people are already stumbling across it and registering ahead of time. It shows a desire to participate with the system, and quite frankly, your momentum's already ahead of where I see many systems that are in place, and they've already started their promotion. So. I will also show you when we talk about display layers, the Department of Emergency Management has the ability to load layers ahead of time. For example, here's evacuation zones broken down across the entire county. By simply clicking that button, this has been loaded ahead of time by the Department of Emergency Management, and it gives them the ability to put a layer onto their map view so they can quickly see various evacuation zones and make plans for those zones. If I were to obviously turn back on the contact layers here and put on the 911 data, you'll see it populate right into those evacuation zones, and I can quickly select any of these evacuation zones and coordinate with those people who are running those evacuations. So by having this type of data preloaded into the system, it gives us the ability to visualize very quickly where areas of threat may be and respond to those areas ahead of time. Here's a very relevant one, flood hazard areas already preloaded into the system. So there's a lot of, obviously, depth to this system. We don't have the time, I'm sure, to go through all of it today. But I'm going to turn it back over to Ryan. If there's anything else you'd like me to show, or I'll certainly answer any questions along the way.
Thank you, Patrick.
You bet, Robert.
Is Mike still on?
I don't think so.
There we go. Okay, great. Before I forget, one thing that we added to the table in the back since you walked in this morning were Spanish language versions of the handouts that you had, as well as biographies of the OEM team members. So please grab some of those on the way out. Thank you very much, Patrick. That was a great demo. Just scratches the surface of all the potential usage of that tool, both for public communications, but also for internal communications within the county with all of our partner agencies here within the county. So we're really excited to dig deep and figure out how we can best implement that. So thank you very much. Doesn't take much imagination to see how that tool would be useful during a fire or an oil spill or any other type of incident that we might be facing in the future. So it's a really exciting time for us. At this time, we'd like to turn over and ask if anybody has any general questions. In addition to the staff and the personnel that have already spoken today, we have Assistant CEO Terry Nisich and Deputy Director Tom Fayram from Public Works that can help to answer any questions that you might have related to El Nino or weather this week, et cetera. So we can take any general questions right now for the group, and then after that we can take some time, and if you'd like to talk to anybody individually or conducting any individual interviews, we'll make time for that as well. So any general questions for the group? Anything that would be for the good and benefit of everybody here in the room. Okay, that being said, we'll go ahead and conclude the general portion of this media briefing today. But like I said, everybody that spoke here earlier today, as well as Tom Fayram and Assistant CEO Terry Nisich, will make themselves available to answer any other questions you might have specifically for us. Thank you very much for coming today. Appreciate it.